Hey everyone, welcome back to Sgcarmart. So alongside the Polestar 3, Polestar are also introducing a second model to market this year, and that's this, the Polestar 4. And while these two cars may on the surface look quite similar, they are in fact quite different. For starters, they are built on different platforms. And while the Polestar 3 is perhaps a more conventional, typical SUV, this car has much more sporty intentions. So what is the Polestar 4? Well, it is a coupe SUV which in today's context is quite a popular body style. Now, just some dimensions about this car, right? So size-wise, it fits between the Polestar 2 and the Polestar 3. This car is over 4.8 meters long, over 2.1 meters wide, but it's actually just over 1.5 meters tall, which is honestly not very tall for a coupe SUV. It does though have a 3-meter wheelbase. Now, we have to look at some of the design elements, right? So you can see that the nose is actually quite slanted and actually quite low, and that really speaks to this car's sporty intentions. Now, here at the rear of the car, perhaps the thing you will immediately notice is that there is no rear window. Why is that? Well, rear visibility is facilitated by that. That's a HD camera, and that means that you are going to be seeing everything on a digital readout on the rearview mirror. Now, we do have to check out the boot space. We have here a 526-litre boot, so honestly, that is quite sizable for a car in this segment. Now let's go check out inside the car. Now, I do want to talk about this panoramic glass roof. So it's quite a big piece, and perhaps more relevantly, it actually ends kind of behind my head, right? This is the most reclined position, and it only starts to end over here, which means that when you're sitting here in the back and you look around, all you're seeing is glass here, and it really creates that sense of expanse, and it really makes this space feel a lot airier. Overall though, I must say it's really quite comfortable space. You also have a bunch of amenities. So we have this quite nice control over here where you can control not just your aircon controls, but including your music as well. You can adjust some of your seat settings as well. So that's really nice and handy. And of course, we have 2 USB ports to charge all your smart devices. Now let's go check out the front of the car. So here in the front of the car, the big thing of course is this. So this is a 15.4-inch infotainment system, and it runs Android Auto operating system, right? So it's a Google-based system. A few couple of interesting things to note. So first of all, it is now horizontal or landscape, which is new for Polestar, and actually the way it's set up is quite interesting. So we have a map here, and you can see sort of your standard Polestar 4 widgets on the right. The interesting thing is that this map is going to be always on, and that means that you're always going to have navigation available to you when you need. And you can actually drag such that you have a bigger map and smaller widgets, drag it even more, and you have a full-size map. I do actually like this new infotainment system because, you know, Polestar's intention was to make it simple to use, unintrusive, and they call it depth on demand, which means that if you really want, you can actually get into real detail, right? So for example, let's go to some driving functions. Now you can see some of your different driving adjustments here, but if you actually want to know what they're actually going to do, click the button and you get honestly quite a lot of detail. But obviously most people are not going to need all this, right? They want something simple, something easy to use, and I think this system does that very well. I like it. I think it's a good improvement. A few other funky features. Ambient lighting. So instead of your typical, oh, let's select green, blue, pink, you instead select planets, and that's fun, that's cool, right? So sun is kind of orangey, Mercury is whitish, I suppose, Earth is blue, and that's just a fun approach to interior lighting. Of course, there's going to be all kinds of other stuff you can find here as well. So if you look at our drive adjustments, there's a whole bunch of things we can adjust. We'll do that when we're driving, and assist functions as well. Let's move away from one screen and onto another, which is that driver display. So it's again quite a different design from what you have seen in the Polestar 2, and I think it's quite an interesting way of approaching it, right? So a lot of the information can be displayed there. And paired with the steering wheel, actually you get quite a lot of functionality, and I think something really cool is that if you look on the steering wheel, you don't actually see that many buttons, right? You see 3 functions over here which do some stuff, 3 more functions here, but actually there's more. So around these, I guess, little knobs, there are actually additional functions. So on this side, it's actually controlling some of your key driving functions, and it's only when you put your finger there that it actually then pops up on the dashboard and can tell you what you're adjusting. And here is actually your audio control. So volume up, volume down, play, pause, and it's nice. It's a nice, clean, minimalistic design. Now, one other clear change is with the climate control. So you have what you might seem like quite a standard climate control system, but the big change now is that these vents are no longer manually controlled, they are controlled from the screen. So you can actually move it around like this, which, do I really like it? Not really, but hey, it is what it is, right? So the good thing is that you can just leave it on auto and it will adjust for you however the car deems fit. However, there's also quite a useful manual function, right? So instead of just adjusting your fan speed and your directional controls, you can actually select where, for example, this means that the vents will point towards your face. You can have it pointed away from your face, and you can just have it pan left and right. How useful? I don't know. I would probably say just leave it in auto and let the car do all the thinking for you. So this being a Polestar, obviously we have to talk about sustainability, right? This car is designed to be sustainable, and that means you have all kinds of sustainable materials. For example, over here on the door, we have something Polestar calls Microtech, and that's some kind of recycled yarn, and it feels quite cool. And honestly, I think it looks really, really nice as well. These seats are fabric seats as well, so that's again a nice sustainable touch. But I think it also adds to the overall ambience of the space, right? This is Polestar, so it is going to be very Scandi forward and design led. So it's quite a minimalistic space, but I actually think it still feels very premium. It still feels expensive. I enjoy sitting here. But enough of sitting here. Let's go drive this car and see what it feels like on the road. Now, I'm driving the long-range dual-motor version of the Polestar 4, and that means we have two electric motors that produce a combined 400 kilowatts and 686 Newton meters of torque. And it's plenty quick, right? If I put my foot down, yes, this car accelerates very, very quickly. It will do 0 to 100 in 3.8 seconds, which means that this is currently the most powerful Polestar you can buy, or you will eventually be able to buy. Now, there is also going to be a long-range single-motor variant, and that means that you have exactly half that performance, right? And that's because you have exactly half the number of motors, just one. Now, this is a performance-oriented car, so it's obviously going to be quick in a straight line. That's not surprising at all. More relevantly though, how does it actually handle through corners? I must say, so far it feels quite tight, quite agile. I think you can place it on the road quite well. This is, all things considered, not a small car, but it drives quite nicely. And currently I have the car set up in its most comfortable setting, I suppose, right? This has adjustable dampers, so it is currently just in standard, and it honestly feels quite comfortable, right? We're just going along something like a highway, and it feels very, very comfortable, very, very smooth. Honestly, compared to something like the Polestar 2, this feels a lot more forgiving for that kind of long-range driving. Now, if I put the car in firm, immediately it feels notably stiffer, right? And it's supposed to be. So this is the most stiff setting, and it definitely helps with managing some of the body roll of the car. And it's not harsh to the point of being uncomfortable, but it's definitely on the firm side. But if you want a slightly more sporty experience, then you want to set the car up just like that. Speaking of settings, there are a whole bunch of things you can adjust. So you can adjust the power delivery. So there's something called range and performance. So performance means you get everything, right? With range, the car prioritizes just using the rear motor. So it's primarily one motor in that sense, and then if you really needed to, put your foot down, and then that second motor will kick in. You can also adjust the steering feel, so that's light, standard, firm. I think standard works perfectly fine for me. And of course, suspension feel, there's standard, nimble, and firm. One pedal drive, you can have it off, you can have it low, and you can have it on standard. I personally like it on standard. I like that one pedal feel. Now, as you come to a red light, we of course have to talk about rear visibility. So there are obviously going to be questions about, how is it going to be light? So we have the digital mirror here, and honestly, I like it. I actually quite like these digital rear mirror setups. Yes, there will be some getting used to it because, it doesn't look quite exactly the same as if it was just a normal camera, but I actually personally think it's quite good. You have a much wider field of vision. Polestar says that it's going to be a lot better in low light conditions. We are driving with as much sunlight as you can possibly get, so not really going to be able to test that. We're not driving this car at night. That's something we're going to have to do back home in Singapore. But I will say that I like the system. It works perfectly well for me. Now, the Polestar 4 obviously has the latest ADAS systems from Polestar. While they function very similarly than you would find in the Polestar 2, actually operating it is going to be slightly different because the controls are different, right? So there are more functions on the steering wheel, but I actually think it's still fairly intuitive. You can see that these controls don't actually have anything marked on them because, again, they operate differently depending on how the car is going to be set up. So typically your left controls are going to adjust things like your one pedal drive, your performance modes. But if you turn on the ADAS system, so one button away, it then activates the pilot assist, and then the controls now become adjusting the speed and then adjusting the distance from the car in front. Again, I've had very good experiences with Polestar's pilot assist, and I think it works very well. You know, it turns for you, you know, it manages to keep a good distance from the car in front of you, accelerate, do everything that you really need to be. So I don't really have any complaints about this. I think it works perfectly well. Let's talk a little bit about comfort. So I am now doing 80 km per hour in more or less a straight line, and I will say that comfort levels are very good. I like how the car rides. You know, I think the ride control is really quite nice. You know, the steering is in the standard feel, I think a good amount of weightiness to it. And the car's also nice and quiet, right? We are, again, rolling on at 80. Really, the only thing I'm hearing is the aircon and a tiny bit of road noise, not much wind noise. Again, that might change if I'm doing 120, but at these kind of Singapore highway speeds, you know, I think it's perfectly comfortable. And you know, we've spent a good 3 hours in the car already, and overall, I'm enjoying myself. I'm really enjoying this experience. And yeah, overall, I think this Polestar 4 is really quite impressive. So yes, that is some quick early impressions about this Polestar 4. If you're wondering when it's going to be in Singapore, well, the answer is very soon. So by the time you actually watch this video, the Polestar 4 won't be long away, right? So definitely keep your eyes peeled for the Polestar 4. And yes, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Do remember to like, share and subscribe to our channel. And of course, you can also hit the notification bell so you will be alerted of all our upcoming videos. And of course, check us out on TikTok at Sgcarmart. So that's my time here in Madrid. I'll see you back home. Bye!